Good evening. We call to order the regular meeting of West Valley City Council for tonight. We welcome you all here. We're have quite a few people here. Interesting. We note that we have all council members present, so full quorum. We will begin with an opening ceremony, and we turn to Councilmember Steve Buhler.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask everybody to please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. I think we've got a Boy Scout troop here tonight, and so I saw Councilmember Lordfeld talking to you also. I assume you're prepped and ready to have someone come up. Right up here to this microphone, right in the center.
Hi, my name is Ian and I'm a part of Troop 689 and we're working on citizenship in the community. And we go to John F. Kennedy Junior High.
Well, great. Well, welcome. Glad to have you here tonight. See, sometimes people pick nights or a scout troop and we'll have like one item on the agenda, but not tonight. So we have a fair number of items. So, but people get up and enter and leave as they see fit, and that's okay. Let's see, next on our agenda are our minutes of August 20th, a motion on the minutes.
Mayor, I move to approve the minutes of August 20th.
Second.
Seeing that they look like they're okay the way they are, all in favor of approving the minutes of August 20th, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. It passes unanimously. The minutes are approved. Okay, next we have our public comment period. We have some people who have signed up. Might be some new ones who may have signed up. In our meetings, we do have a period of time for people to comment publicly. However, in order to preserve the decorum that ought to exist in a public meeting, a person can speak up to 5 minutes, but it is their time. It's not a debate, it's not question and answers. It's simply time for you to say what you want, and we'll just listen. We may comment later after everyone's spoken. You are not restricted on what you speak about, any topic. However, the council is restricted to some degree. We can make very brief comments, but we cannot begin a policy discussion on any issue that is not on our agenda. That is to protect the public so that we never do business without notifying the public ahead of time that we will be talking about those issues. Now, we can briefly say, you know, we want to put it on an agenda, or we ought to talk more about that, or something like that, but we really can't get into a discussion on it. That is state law, by the way, the Open and Public Meetings Act, which require us, for example, we can't start early. We have to make sure that we publish our agenda in advance, and then we stick to the items on our agenda. With that introduction, and by the way, we have a couple of things. One is all your comments are directed to the mayor, not to individual council members. And then we do have several, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, don't we? We have 4 items on our agenda where we, by law, are required to have a separate public comment period. So if you're here to speak on any of those, the America First Federal Credit Union property, the Hunter Heights property, let's see, Then the one about multiple unit dwelling zone or RM zone. And then the last one, let's see, oh, that's the one where property just right here by the mall is requesting a change. If you're here to talk about any of those, we will give you time to speak on those later on. So right now, these are the general comments, not related to those. I mean, if you do, we're not going to tell you you can't, but we prefer you do it closer to those. So with that, we open up our public comment period. We've had 3 people sign up. Mark Green, if you'll come forward.
I'm gonna wait.
You're going to talk on one of the others. Okay, that's fine. We always have that happen. Jim Visock, I know yours is probably a little bit of everything. Some people come to our council meetings regularly. And Jim's one of them. And we're glad he does.
Jim Visock, holding the scary document again, or at least scary to Mr. Morris. I sent you guys an email today, pretty self-explanatory. I want to refer back to an email back on 7/11 that Mr. Pyle sent you guys about the ALJ position and how that Mr. Morris being there was only supposed to be temporary, that Mr. Morris agrees that if he wasn't doing the job in there, that he could do more on the front end part, taking care of some of these issues. I've been informed that there's a job posting for an administrative assistant position. I don't know if that's to help in this position or if they're hiring another code enforcement or what. But once again, removing him as the ALJ will allow him to be the director over code enforcement, animal control, and hopefully resolve some of these issues. And Mr. Pyle wrote almost those exact same words in a 7/11 email to you guys. Hire a person that's independent of the city. I know he wants to hire somebody that he may be able to control. And control might be the wrong words, those are my words. But somebody needs to be independent, totally independent from code enforcement and from the city. Temporarily, they could put somebody in there while they're looking, but it doesn't even look like they're looking. And then one thing I would say, remember, perception is reality to the citizens. What the citizens out there are perceiving to be, even though it might be legal for the Director of Community Preservation to be the ALJ, the perception out there when citizens find out about it is that it's wrong. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next we have Philip Baker.
My name is Philip Baker, constituent of District 4. And this is to piggyback off of a little what Jim was speaking on. I have a property that I bought 5 years ago up on the West Bench. Came into some situations where at work I had 91.25 tons fall on me. This kind of left me at a financial bind because of the lawsuit that I was involved in with the particular employer. But things had happened where I bought this house. This happened 6 months after I bought my home. So my whole intention was to buy my home for my family, my boys, show them certain things on how to deal with owning property and things of that nature. So fast forward, I received a notice that I was in violation by the late Officer Robinson. Beautiful person, we spoke. My condolences to the city on your loss. She understood my situation that I was in. After her passing, I received Officer Gates, explained the same thing. He looked at her notes, he understood the situation. So now that things have been settled and I'm trying to catch up, I received another notice from a code enforcement officer saying that I was in violation. I explained to him what I was doing. My neighbors to the east of me, my neighbors to the west of me, we were all in agreement of what was going to happen. I had to go to court this morning on this violation, which says that the property was in violation 25 days, or 33 days at $25 a day, plus court fees. I walked in, I explained to the judge what I was doing, showed him things, even brought my pictures, but didn't have to do it because of the fact that this code enforcement officer really shot himself in the foot. I'm not against the fine that I received, which is a $100 fine, which basically, like the judge in the matter says, what are we doing here? This is a simple administrative citation. Basically, you write him a ticket, you put it on the door, he pays it. The encounter that I had with this gentleman seemed to be interesting because he told me, I told him what I was doing. He's like, oh, you're trying to do too much. It's my property, I'm paying property taxes, yet my roads aren't fixed. Certain things aren't done within the community, but you're getting on me about my land, which I was in the process of landscaping, which I do have the pictures. So bottom line is, if you're gonna have these code enforcement officers out citing or enforcing codes, laws, ordinances, I think they should be knowledgeable of those things and what they can and can't do, because bottom line, to me, I almost had to pay $1,000 today. I'm robbing from Peter to pay Paul right now because of certain things that have happened in my past, no fault of mine. But like I say, it's just interesting the things that I saw in this court and the people that came in this court about what they were being fined for. And most of them had no knowledge of these laws or ordinances or codes. So I think if you're going to have these new officers, people that are being hired into the code enforcement, in my opinion, I think they should be knowledgeable. And like I say, to me, what happened this morning, borderline extortion, and that's a strong word because I am a citizen of West Valley. I like West Valley, and when I moved to Utah 9 years ago from California, I heard all bad things about what a ghetto was in Salt Lake City and West Valley. And trust me, you guys have no clue. None. Like I say, where we're from and where my wife's from, this is like, for lack of a better statement, moving up to the east side, George Jefferson. These people would cherish the homes that they have, even if they're in low income. So I would just think that these officers should be a little more considerate, not only of the properties and the residents, but of the situations. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Was there anyone else here to speak in our public comment period? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Turn to our Assistant City Manager, Paul Isaac. Any comments?
No, sir, thank you.
City Council members? We appreciate those who have come to speak, we enjoy having feedback from our citizens, and oftentimes we do some investigating just to see. We do fairly regularly relook at our ordinance enforcement concepts and have discussions on those on a regular basis. That doesn't mean they always change. We look at those and see what we need to do. With that then, we will move on our agenda. We will now go to item 7A. Now this is our application S8-2-2019 filed by Natalie Nichols. Final plat approval for America First Credit Union in West Valley. It's at 3253 West, 3500 South. We will consider in conjunction with that application our ordinance 19-28, which is to amend lots 1 and 2. America First Credit Union on 3500 South built a new building there. They bought quite a large piece of property. As it turns out, they weren't using all of it. Of course, the front part that was on 3500 South was where the building was. They determined that due to some employee training and things that they decided to do there, they needed some more parking space. So they're actually going to utilize a little bit more of that property they already own, and this is requesting that that be done and separated from the rest of the property in the back, which is currently vacant. And so those, I think it was 12 additional parking spots to their already existing lot. And well, it's only been, hasn't been 2 months since it opened up, so still relatively new. That is the issue before us, whether we will approve that application, which would be ordinance 19-28. But because this is a change, we need to allow public input. So we will now open the public input portion. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public input portion. We'll come back to the council for any additional comments or discussion or a motion.
Mayor, move for approval of ordinance 19-28.
Second.
Any further comments? Seeing none, pretty routine things. So, but for our scouts, these items we have to do by roll call vote. We can't just vote. So, to our city recorder, who will take our roll call vote.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Buhler.
Aye.
Councilman Hume.
Aye.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Norfelt.
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, public hearing is application SA-3, 2019, filed by Ayoob Abbaszedeh. This is final plat approval for Hunter Heights Estates Subdivision, located at 5255 West, 3990 South. We will consider on that application our ordinance 19-29 to approve the amendment and re-subdivision of portions of the lots there. And if I remember all these correctly, I believe this was going to be divided into 2 lots. And there's an existing home there, and so the property, which is a little larger piece, is going to be divided into 2. Anything else I'm missing there? If not, okay. We'll open it then for public comment. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and we'll bring it back to the council.
I move for approval of ordinance 1929.
Second.
No more comments, then to our city recorder. Before we do the roll call vote for the scouts, lest you think we're hurrying through these items, last week we had a study meeting and we discussed all these issues. Just a little while ago, we ended our study meeting for issues that we will address next week. We ask questions, we get presentations. And so if we don't ask a lot of questions, it's not that we haven't actually studied it, we do look at it. So with that then, to our roll call vote.
Councilman Norfelt.
Yes.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Hume.
Aye.
Councilman Buhler.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next, we have application ZT-5-2019, filed by the Dev Group. They are requesting a zone text change to amend criteria in our code. This code is where it's used to determine whether a property is eligible to be rezoned to RM, which is a multiple unit dwelling residential zone. We will consider ordinance 19-30 to amend the regulations regarding that. Let's see. I need to just get that up in front of me. We had quite a bit of discussion on this last week, and we actually in our documents have two different proposals on rezoning these. Generally, in our code, we limit what can be done in different codes, and in this case, this is a higher density than would be considered in these locations. So a proposal was made to allow higher density project, which will be the next item on our agenda, and in order to do that, to change our code. But in changing our code, it affects more than just the one property that we will be dealing with. It will affect properties across a portion of our city. We did narrow the scope down in that discussion originally, as it was proposed to us, that it would be only within half a mile, was it, of our transit stations, our track stations. So there would be 4 locations within the city. Now, there are areas that are zoned higher density residential, but in these particular areas, this would change that. And so we have 2 options that we discussed last week, and we'll see which one fares tonight. One was to change that for all 4 of those locations, and one that we would change it only for the central hub, which would be right here by the track stations just outside here. So that is the issue before us as to whether we will change and allow that particular change in zoning. And I did mention the ordinance 19-30, right? A lot of things I've got to just put on the written record so that I make sure that anyone who ever listens to this again, and I'm sure you'll all go home and listen to this several times, but just in case there is anyone, we make sure we get all the right details in there. That is the introduction. Then we will open public comment on this issue. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? I thought we might get a couple, but guess not. If there's no one here to speak to this, then I will close the public comment portion and bring it back to the council.
Mayor, I move for approval of ordinance 1930, alternative 2, which I believe is the 1 area rather than the 4.
Second.
Properly before us, any discussion or comments?
Just one question in
Yes.
regards to, and I understand the options, and I'm okay with the motion, but the zone type change would, even though we don't have any imminent plans for new rail stations or track stations, would also apply to anything that is built from here on out as well, correct?
No, actually, because it's titled the Central Hub, and this is identified by UDOT as a central hub for transportation in our city.
Appreciate the clarification.
Even in the future, I guess maybe somewhere in the future they might build another one somewhere else in our city, but they would probably call it a different type of hub.
They actually use the West Valley Central Light Rail Station. So that's the official name of the station, so I'll be right.
Okay. Yeah.
No opposition to the motion, just thank you for the clarification.
Any further comments? Although, Councilman Young.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to confirm, I want to make sure before I vote for this one. So the motion and the second is only for only one, the one in the center. It's right here, correct?
That is correct. The other 3 that were mentioned, which is by the Maverick Center, Redwood Road, and Metro Business Park, that's not their official names, but that's where I look at, are not included in this motion.
Okay.
Now, I will make a comment. This is the start of what I think will be a discussion over a period of time. As our city is filled up, it stops expanding outward and then it will start to grow up, like a lot of cities do. And I think at some point in the near future, we do have to have some serious discussions and research on what will happen, what do we do as our city continues to grow? How do we put some guidelines in place? That's a kind of a future agenda item at some point in the future. I don't think that's like in the next few weeks, but maybe over the next year or so, we might want to revisit, take a look at it and say, how do we set some guidelines for where this will go? Because we believe that, or I think that this issue will continue to come up in the future. So, but I think we're not ready to make that decision tonight. I think a lot of research and work needs to go into that.
Yeah, I agree with what you say, Mayor. I would comment that we do have a general plan, we do have guidelines, we do have zoning, but we certainly need to have fresh eyes and fresh look at those things from time to time to make sure that things are going the way that we would want them to go. This particular area, we're in our downtown, such as it is. We have these apartment buildings to the west of us that are building up here. The office tower and the second tower is soon to come, and you know, this is our downtown. Which is why I didn't want to include all of the track stations, just this one, and that's why I made that particular motion.
And you make a very, very good point. We do have a plan in place for our whole city, and that plan will continue. But oftentimes, as things go along, we may take another look at that. That does not mean that it would change. What it means is, as issues come up, we evaluate those. On occasion, we have made some changes, but not in every case. So, but it is an issue I suspect will come up again. So, but where it ends up, who knows? With that then, seeing no further comments, to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Buhler.
Aye.
Councilman Hume.
Aye.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Norfelt.
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next we go to item D. This is GPZ-2 2019, filed by the Deaf Group, requesting a general plan change from general commercial to very high density residential, which is, we changed from C2 to RM. Property located at 2600 West, 3800 South. In conjunction with that would be our ordinance 19-31 for those changes. And then by separate motion, ordinance 19-32 for the zone change from C2 to RM. So there's two issues there. And then there will be a third issue, resolution 19-108, authorizing the city to enter into a development agreement for the approximately 3.66 acres located across the street here. So we will take each of those individually, but we invite you to comment on any of those issues as anyone is here to speak to them. With that then, we will open the public comment portion. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? If you will come up and introduce yourself, and typically we ask for an address, so if there is a need to follow up with you, we can contact you.
Of course, yeah. My name is Rich Day. Address is 360 North, 700 West in North Salt Lake. Actually, I think part of the process and discussion I wanted to mention here was because the scouts are here, and this is a neat opportunity to learn that a lot of work has gone into this and discussion with staff and planning commission prior to, obviously, the work session with this great council. And so I think, you know, a lot of it that we're talking about, even though there is a vote and a discussion period, that it's going, you know, this is kind of the, I guess, the final steps in a long process. I think when we initially looked at this project, it was actually a little over a year ago when we first began the process, and I really want to commend the staff and planning commission and of course this council as we have talked through and discussed this. It's been a great education to see how we can work together. This project is it started out as a much bigger project than initially planned, and based on recommendation from staff, reduce the size of the project because we wanted to be considerate of the neighbors on all sides, including the mall. We hired a traffic engineer and had him review the traffic and what the traffic would look like, both as a retail project as well as a apartment project. And because it actually has better traffic as an apartment or residential development, we felt comfortable in our position because it was a topic that we knew we were concerned with. Second to that, we talked about the parking. And one of the discussions that we had very early on, and then again that's come up here recently, was allowing parking, because a lot of times in the development world, what developers and builders and property owners will do is charge for parking or charge for various things. And we had heard that being a concern from Planning Commission, and worked with and talked with Planning Commission as we made the presentation with city staff. And one of the recommendations was that we not charge for that parking, so that the parking wasn't flooding out into the public streets. And at this point, we are, because we want to be a good partner to the city, willing to include that in our development agreement that states that we will not charge for parking to the residents. That way, again, it gives our residents a parking spot. It will be secured behind gates with key fobs and electronically keeping track of that. And so we, again, want to make sure that you guys know, as council members and again as staff and Planning Commission, that we want to be good partners with you. And as this good gentleman stated, I think West Valley is a great spot and a great place to be, and we want to continue to make it and improve on what we feel like is a great city. So we want to do that and do that in conjunction with and as a partner to everyone here. I don't know if there's anything else, or you want to ask me anything, Mayor?
I don't see any questions. I think I raised some on the parking, and I think I would make the comment that because of the experience we had in Highbury, where an apartment complex charged, and so everyone, in order not to pay the fee, moved out into the residential neighborhood and in front of the school, and created numerous safety hazards apart from just clogging up the neighborhood. And so we ended up then restricting parking, no parking on the streets, in order to force it back in. And we'd prefer not to do that. But as you know, you have a couple of neighbors who are commercial.
Yes.
And if it becomes a problem as people start parking there, they have the right to say no overnight parking and tow people. So that will probably cover that problem. But it is an issue that is of concern, but we appreciate your willingness to work with the city on that to see if we can make this work. We think it's a great addition to the city. So, Councilman, you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to have a comment and not a question, but I just want you to know what I believe is every single one of us here earlier, you heard that we are supporting you, we vote yes. And because our plan is here at the city center, so we want to have rooftops in this area to support that, the plan we have here. The one thing my concern, very, I think, minor, I learned from 35 LaSalle and Redwood Road, the corner right there nearby Carl Jr., and they have a hotel, a motel east of the Carl Jr. right there on 35 LaSalle. And sometimes they sign a contract with a government to have a halfway house, like people, I put it this way, they just sign a contract with government and they put some people there, and we have to send our police officers, let's put it that nice way, send our police officer to go over there to do cleanup sometime. And that's my concern, so that don't sign a contract with government and put a lot of people in apartment complex and run into that problem like we have it right now at that motel. Yeah, and that's I brought it up in our study meeting too. So but I'm supporting you. I think that's a great project, and it's good for our city center.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. May I comment, Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. I think,
There's no 5-minute limit.
okay, I was
Just so you
waiting
all
for the
know.
clock to
No
start. I
problem.
wasn't sure, but I appreciate that input, and I think with that input, and like we've done, we worked with the city before on other projects, is we really do take seriously your input and feedback, and considering other projects that we have done, they've even gone back and said, you know what, after feedback from the council and even from the public comments, how do we make this project that even though it's approved, how do we make it better? And that's really our goal, not just in this one, but in everything that we do with the city. We have, again, I can't overemphasize how nice it is to work with a city that you really actually feel like you are working together towards a great solution rather than fighting head to head and trying to, pull fingernails to get a little more approval and density on something specific or some variance change, and to actually have the staff and, as I said, planning commission and these discussions that have been happening for the last year plus, it's very refreshing and much appreciated.
Maybe we need the bigger Costco.
I'll look into it.
Yes, Councilwoman Lang.
Question.
Yeah.
So I'm still a little concerned about the traffic on 3800 South.
Mhm.
Is there going to be anything to help mitigate that pressure on that street?
That's a great question, and we actually brought our traffic expert with us. Do you mind if Ryan, you may comment?
If Councilwoman Lang wants that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember just has to say they want it, and that's
Thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is Ryan Hells from Hells Engineering, and we've looked at a lot of traffic in West Valley over the years. This is one of those locations where we've identified that there's a little bit of concern on the traffic signal timing. If we change the timing, that will shorten the queues down. What happens is there's a lot more green time for the north-south traffic, even when there's no traffic there. So the traffic clears out and it stays green a little bit longer. If we can retime that light, we could add more green time to the east-west movements, and that queue will shorten down. We actually went from a level of service, I think it was level of service D to level of service C. I'd have to go pull the report real quick, but we actually had an improvement of level of service, not only at the major intersection, but at the neighboring intersections. So the one just to the east, as well as the project access. One was functioning at a level of service F, as in Frank, just because there was the queuing that would back across that driveway, the first driveway to the east. By changing that signal timing, we shorten the queues, and that access functions much better, as well as the Costco access.
So the people I'm concerned about are the ones trying to get out south, from the neighborhood from the south. So if they want to make a left-hand turn out of there,
Yeah,
with everybody coming from your complex and the Costco, I don't see them getting out very easily.
because that queue is shortened, they'll be able to have more opportunity to turn out and make that left turn. As we all know, left turns are the hardest turn to make, because you've got to have the clear movement. In this case, when they're northbound, they've got to have a clear movement in the eastbound traffic flow as well as westbound in order to make that left turn movement. With the change in signal timing, that queue will not be extending back as far. It should be a little bit easier for them to make it out. It won't be perfect, but it will be a little bit easier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'd just follow up on a comment with that. I think a lot of it depends on the time of day.
Oh, true.
Where the real problem will be is when you get that rush hour traffic where it backs up. And though you might want to shorten the queue north and south, that's when most traffic is going north and south. So I don't know, our staff hopefully will work that out. We'll see how good a solution they get with that.
Well, here, Mayor, the east side of the Costco, you see that the road go down the south and hit 3800 south, I believe. We can put the traffic light there so can eliminate the traffic a little bit before they can go to the mall and go to that route, and they go south, 3800 south there, and have a traffic light there. So that means we'll help a lot too. So if you go in that direction.
A traffic light at the frontage road that comes straight off 2400 west, I believe it is. Is that what you mean?
It
comes off the freeway and goes along the east side of the property,
Yeah,
east side of the mall.
Right.
Yeah, that might be a good place for a traffic light.
And sorry, I didn't come back, and actually part of the traffic solution that we had talked about was actually going back to the mall owners and having multiple conversations with them. We've talked to them countless times, and I know that even though we don't and can't control all that there by the Costco, in between Costco and the development that we're proposing, we have pushed them to and explained to them how important it is for us and the progress of this development and making it better. So I think we'll continue to push the mall owners as best we can. And again, welcome any feedback from anybody in the city that could recommend that.
And if I may, as I look at the plan, although there is ingress and egress on 3800 South, that's not the only ingress and egress to this property, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Come also from the
west side.
The west side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So while you're up there,
Yeah.
how many three-bedroom units are going to be in this complex?
The three-bedroom, I don't have the exact. Yes, I do.
I have that there's only 3.
That is accurate. We have three-bedroom units.
And why isn't there more of that?
It has a lot to do with the market. We're building this project not as a project that's being subsidized, a project that we're trying to have government contracts, as Councilman Hewitt mentioned earlier, where we're not looking for subsidies from either the government or not. And the market demand, based on the market reports that we've done, is suggesting that there are more need for this type of housing. For actually, one example that we had talked about was the program that the city is working with and doing for the education, or furthering the education, that we'd actually talked about providing an opportunity for these students a place to live, because it's so close to a track station. They can actually jump on the tracks and run right up to the University of Utah. And so again, it's not a government subsidy, but an opportunity for us to work with the city to do that. And the market demands are such that this would be a great place for people who, smaller families and workers, to get to and from the university, out to the airport. And again, looking at the reports that we've done, are really workers in and around West Valley.
Okay. And then I'm going from the Planning Commission minutes, but their concern was you don't have enough places or equipment for the kids to play. Do you really feel that's a concern?
Because of the report that we did, we didn't foresee that this would be a large family project, a project for smaller families. Probably, we do have the tot lot and fields for the kids to play. But I didn't specifically remember that being a concern, but maybe I missed it. Yeah.
And then you have the walkable. The other one was Commissioner Woodruff was worried about the walkability and the traffic. So you've answered the traffic questions.
Yeah.
But it's pretty walkable. You'll have plenty of sidewalks to get people in and out of your apartments, to the tracks, to the mall, to the grocery store.
Correct. Yeah, in fact, we even actually approached Costco and so we were talking with them about potentially having a partnership with them on that, and they actually pushed back a little bit, and we said, you know what, that's fine. We'll just put a sidewalk on our property. We'll reduce our size of our project. So it's important, again, for us, for that walkability, because we want to provide a segue to, our tenants to go into Costco and walk into the mall and use that. And so, again, our goal was to get this project underway and developed as soon as possible. At the same time, still want to take into consideration what city staff and council are interested in having us do as well.
Okay, thank you.
Well, for sure, sorry, Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. For sure, impact the mall already in our city, more or less. And you know that these days it's very hard to get a good name or big box into the mall.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a big competition out there.
Sure.
Yeah, And I hope that this will support that. Also, you just watched in the news today in China, they just opened the first Costco in China. You see that, so
Yes, I can see Costco's.
yeah, I see so many
Yes.
customers, they have no way to go around the Costco.
Yeah,
So hopefully we support the Costco too.
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I think having additional density, the truth is that's retail follows density. And the more people you have in a specific area, it attracts retail, not the other way. You usually don't have, in the commercial world, you can't build retail and expect people to come. It's the other way around. You have the density. And perfect example, I did a development out in Tooele, and they kept talking about, oh, we're going to get a Target, we're going to get a Target. And the reality is because they didn't have the population, they Target and these other stores can't justify it. They have to get to a 50,000 population number before they'll actually bring in some of their bigger retailers. So very similar. It's just the more density we have. Again, I'm not a proponent of saying let's build 15, 16 stories here, but it certainly can be supported because of the lack of density for this type of market and this type of product in the area.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Anyone else here to speak to this? I know there was a Mark Green, but I think he left. Oh, back here. Oh, okay, sorry. You weren't who I thought you were. I saw some people leave.
Yes, I'm Daryl Curtis. I live at 3860 South Marcia Drive in West Valley. My concern is high-density housing. We have a lot of high-density housing out in 56 West, and I see it more of a transient issue. It's not permanency. We have a lot of transient in those apartment complexes out there, and I just think you're going to have more transient here. As far as Costco, do people walk from the apartments just on the other side of the freeway to go to Costco? I've never seen anyone leaving Costco that I go there. I don't see people leaving, carrying things, going over there. So my biggest concern as residents of West Valley is the density housing. I feel like we have enough of that as it is, and it doesn't create any permanency for our residents. The apartment complex out by me, we've had people move in and move out constantly. The housing prices out there are extremely high, and I can't imagine that being too much of a difference here. And so all you're creating is more of a transient area, not a permanent area. I'd like to see that area turned into more of the commercial for the Costco, the mall, and everything else. Everything around it is commercial, so I would recommend that we look at that as more of a commercial area and not as a high-density housing.
Okay, it was Daryl Curtis?
Correct.
Okay, your address?
3860 South Marcia Drive.
Okay, so we got that. I'm sorry, I thought you
No
were
problem.
Mark Green. So-
No, I'm sorry.
So,
Thank you.
thank you. Jim?
My only concern was, I sat in the study meetings and listened, it was brought up a lot about the parking issue. And unless I'm recalling wrong, they were only gonna give one parking spot per unit. So it's gonna be all permitted parking. If there's 6 people that are in there, they got 6 vehicles, it's all gonna be permitted and contained into the unit. Something like that, because in a 3-bedroom, you can have 6 people in it, which means 6 cars, and that was the issue. And like I said, it was brought up in the study meeting that the original plan, and it may have been changed, and was that it was 1 spot per unit. And unless I'm not recalling that right, and maybe that's already been fixed. So that was the only thing, because I don't want to see the overflow out into the streets, causing the issue like the mayor said. And then the more regulation has to come down to put it down on it, because even in a 1-bedroom apartment, husband and wife, there's 2 cars. So I just want to make sure there's adequate parking without using Costco's and some of the other problems. So that's the only issue that I saw, and I know it was brought up in the study meetings. So that's it.
Thank you.
So there are 200 and something apartments and 400 and something parking spaces, which complies with our ordinance on parking for the development.
Okay, anyone else to speak to this issue? Yes.
apologize for not being dressed appropriately. I was at a school spirit night supporting Taylorville Elementary. But David McEwen, 2139 Cucumber Vine Court, West Valley City 84119. And I'm sure this developer's tired of hearing from me, being on the planning commission. But I am for this project, and you know, they bring a really nice product to West Valley City, which is very much needed. My one concern that I would just hope the city keeps on their radar is going to be the traffic on 3800 South. They did do a traffic study, but I would just want to remind the mayor and the city council that this traffic study is done before the hotel is completed, before All-Star Bowling, Pins and L's is completed, as well as Hobby Lobby being completed and this development. So as much as I appreciate the forethought and the work that they've gone to help provide information to the city, I just want, I guess as a reminder, there is still a lot of traffic to come to this area because of growth. And so I just hope that once this development, assuming that it gets approved this evening and moves forward, that we watch 3800 South carefully to ensure that we're not really creating a strain on the traffic in that area. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, we'll close the public comment portion and come back to the council.
I'd like to make a couple of comments or observations, Mayor.
Okay.
First of all, we are told all the time, and for my part believe, that there is a housing shortage. And more housing will alleviate that. Now, it'd be nice if everybody had a quarter-acre house, but you know, that's not the reality of it. When I got married, we moved into an apartment, paid $260 a month, and we walked to the movies and walked to the stores and enjoyed that lifestyle until our family grew to a size that we needed to move out. And this reminds me very much of that. I'm thinking if I lived there, I'd walk to the movies and walk to the store and enjoy that for a time. Probably not be my long-term goal unless, you know, if I were a bachelor or just taking care of myself, maybe I would live there the rest of my life. But any more housing that's created helps alleviate the housing shortage. The second issue or observation is about the parking. This project, much like the ICO apartments here to the west of us, phase 1 is built, occupied, phase 2 will be built soon. They have interior parking, and that's how things need to be going forward in the future. Certainly the cheapest way is build your big building, put parking all around it, just pave it. That's going to be cheaper. The land's cheaper than building the building. But that doesn't work anymore as our city's growing up. And you go down to Salt Lake City, and the Smith's Marketplace has a parking structure. The Walmart has a parking structure. You know, this is just the way that it's going to have to be because land's at a premium. They're not making any more of it. And so we are, as the mayor said, going up rather than out. And that this development had the foresight to bring their parking on site and under rooftop, I think is a very good thing that we should encourage. Third of all, this property has been something that I've driven by regularly and wish that there was something there other than weeds. Nothing's been there for a long time. This is a good use. Maybe we would have wanted something else. Maybe if it was my property, I'd want something else, but it's not my property. Certainly the housing is a good use for this property. If I owned a grocery store, I'd be thrilled with this project coming in there. I don't own the grocery store. We had our own traffic report given to us. The traffic that this would bring is comparable to a hotel. It's less than if it were retail. And so, yes, we need to keep an eye on it, but I'm not overly concerned as far as, well, but the Hobby Lobby's coming in, and you know, we used to have a Macy's, and we used to have a Mervyn's, and we used to have a lot of other things that were busy on the inside of the mall as well. So it's always, you know, more or less, it's a balance, but I think this is a good project. I'll be happy to see it built and more people able to live there.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I just want to echo what Mr. Buhler just said. This property right here is a very unique location. To be honest with you, I think it, I hope gonna go like Red Lobster gonna go there or something, but this one is a very good one. I think it's will support the area and also will support the city center in the future too.
I think one thing we need to look at too is mass transit. It is right next to, within walking distance of our track station, our Max bus station, and our central point where all of the bus routes in West Valley come in and leave from. So it will be a great partner for mass transit.
Okay. We've had quite a bit of discussion, so maybe at this point now it's back with the council, and I don't have a motion before me.
I would move for approval of it.
Huh?
You gotta close the...
Didn't I close it?
Not yet. Okay. Then I'll make a motion for approval of ordinance 19-31.
Second.
Properly before us. I think I would respond very briefly. When elected officials look at decisions before them as they represent the city, they also look at what is the right balance that should exist in a city. There's phases that cities go through. I know that oftentimes, I look back when I moved out here 40 years ago, and I wished, gee, all those horse pastures and farms should have stayed, would have had all that green space. I don't know why they didn't do that just for me. It seems like they felt like they owned their own property. Now I'm tongue-in-cheek saying that, but the reality is that people want to develop their property. Cities grow up. And the projections are that we'll be wall-to-wall cities in this valley before too many more years. Probably 1 to 2 decades. There will be no more land at all. And the only way to go will be to build up. The reason that I am pretty supportive of this project is first, the location. That property, although it might at some point be developed for commercial or retail, but it hasn't for a long time. This is a good product. The other thing is the company that is developing it, building these apartments, has a history, one that is good, that we can trust, and that these apartments will be higher-end apartments. It's tough to keep everyone happy, but I'm very comfortable given the history that's gone on, that this is a very reasonable proposal that's before us. So with that, seeing no further,
Just one for the benefit of residents and the public. If we could just ask staff, if I could just ask staff to please explain what notification process the city does to allow residents in that area when there is a request for zone change to make feedback.
Sure, I think I could do that, but I'm going to turn to, you happen to know, or city recorder, would you go ahead and say that?
So residents who live within 300 feet of the property are sent a notice about the date of the meeting. We also notice in the newspaper 10 days beforehand, and we also publish the public notice website.
Thank you. I just wanted that clear, that there definitely is ample opportunity for insight and input, and we have received a little bit, definitely not as much as we have with other developments, but I'm comfortable in the vote that I'm going to make tonight in favor of the resolution because of that feedback as well.
Stop talking. Seeing no further comments, to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu?
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang?
No.
Councilman Buhler?
Aye.
Councilman Hume?
Aye.
Councilman Christensen?
Yes.
Councilman Norfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes by majority.
Okay. To the council.
I move for approval of ordinance 19-32.
Second.
Properly for us, any further comments? Seeing none, to our city recorder.
Councilman Norfelt,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Hume,
Aye.
Councilman Buhler,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang,
No.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes by majority.
Okay. Then to the council again, the third item.
Move for approval of the development agreement resolution 19-108.
Second.
So do we need to add that they're not gonna have any paid parking
I was gonna say the same.
to the development agreement? Have they added it since our last meeting?
That's what I just asked.
Yeah, the one that I see in, I mean,
Yes, sir, they, or yes, ma'am, they have. And yes, sir, they have.
is that an exhibit F?
Oh.
Unless it's in the development agreement attached to it.
How about we ask Steve, Patrick to come up and maybe explain and make sure.
Mr. Patrick here.
As long as it's there, it's cool. I didn't find it in my reading.
So what's in the agreement now is it says that each unit would have one stall that's included with the rent. And so if we wanted to make it so that none of the parking would be charged for, we would need to amend that one provision.
I think we need to do that, but I didn't make the motion.
You move to amend the motion.
I move to amend the motion that there will be no charge for any parking stalls associated to this development.
Second.
Okay, so I gotta keep straight which rules we use here, and I think on that, if we pass the motion, does the main motion stay?
I think we vote
Yeah,
on the
if you
amendment.
do the amendment motion.
Unless he accepts it as a friendly amendment to me.
I'll accept it as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
And so is it still second?
Yes, we'll still second it, so.
Okay.
And second.
Okay. Now, I think the development agreement, there were some standards put in there, as I recall, on a little higher quality. This is similar to previous projects that you've done. And so that's important, I believe, because we're looking for that little bit higher standard, a little bit, a fair amount more standard of quality. Okay. So the motion is properly before us, which has been amended to include what's in our documentation, plus the fact that all the parking will be included free. Is that the correct way to state that? Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, to our city recorder.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu, Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Buhler,
Aye.
Councilman Hume,
Aye.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Norfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We do have 4 more resolutions, but they're fairly brief, and then we will get to our convening as a Board of Canvassers. Thank you. Yeah, by the time we get to the end, a few have left. So we're going to go down through these. They're pretty straightforward.
Mayor, we might welcome all of the candidates that have, when we certify the election, we'll have passed the primary election to be here.
Okay.
They're all in the audience, and welcome them here.
Let's see, are these the ones here?
Darrell Curtis, Christiana Powell, and Alita Lynch.
Okay. All right. Welcome. We'll get down to that business in a minute. Let's get through our resolutions here. Resolution 19-109, approve the purchase of 2 international bobtail cab and chassis from Rush Truck Center. And that's for $185,000. not to exceed that. So that's the issue before us. These are fairly routine. We've done some of these before. These are just the next two.
Move to approve Resolution 19109.
And just so our scouts know, these don't require public comment, so we'll just move on these contracts, these purchases.
And as I remember from the presentation, both of these first two purchases, we are turning back in used equipment that in one case actually made money for the city and turning it back in. So our fleet management people are watching that fleet to
Very
keep
careful.
it as up to date as possible, as economically as possible.
Do we have a second on that?
Mhm.
Then, seeing, okay, thank you. No further comments to our city recorder.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu. Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Buhler.
Aye.
Councilman Hume.
Aye.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Nordfeld.
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next, we go to Resolution 19-110. This is the approval of the purchase of 2 front-end loaders from Wheeler Machinery Company. So you'd be used by our Public Works Department and the Operations Division. These come to a total of about $332,000, not to exceed that. And I thought that this was the one that they,
I didn't hear that number.
This is the one that made money, yes.
we actually turn them back in, and with inflation, the costs go up. So these are things that we routinely need to purchase. These are off a state contract, so we get a great deal for them. That is the introduction to the issue to the council.
Move for approval of Resolution 19-110.
Second.
Seeing no further comments, to the city recorder.
Councilman Nordfeld.
Yes.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Hume.
Aye.
Councilman Buhler.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. And next we have Resolution 19-111, the approval of a purchase of 1 Ford F-150 from Young Ford, not to exceed $32,000. The price is just a little bit less than that. And so, let's see, that we did have an animal control truck. It was involved in an accident resulting in a total loss. We were able to recuperate $29,000 from insurance proceeds. But this is the purchase we need to make to the council.
Move to approve Resolution 19-111.
Second.
Seeing no further comments, to our city recorder.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Buhler.
Aye.
Councilman Hume.
Aye.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Nordfeld.
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, next we have Resolution 19-112, awarding a contract to Lyndon Jones Construction for the Winton Street Sidewalk Project. This is improvements crossing UTA light rail tracks. The cap is $155,000. The bid that was awarded, the lowest bid on this project, was $138,769. This is just making it safer to cross that tracks, light rail tracks at that location over in Chesterfield.
So, I move for approval with Resolution 19-112.
Second.
Okay, it's properly enforced. By the way, these funds come from our Class C road money. Those are the funds that come from our tax on gasoline, since they will be used on our roads. So, to our city recorder.
Councilman Nordfeld.
Yes.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Hume.
Aye.
Councilman Buhler.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, now, this next item, of course, is convening as a board of canvassers. Do we need to do that by motion? Or just automatic? Okay. So, there was a primary election held August 13th. Resolution 19-113 will, if passed, will accept and approve the results of the municipal primary election, as shown on the report that was attached to our documentation. The city council is the official board of canvassers to certify the results. And so that is the issue before us. The council.
Move for approval. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to all of you who made it to the general election. I know years ago when I put my name on the ballot, it's tough. I mean, it's a scare sometimes too. And I just wanted to know that you're brave, and also congratulations to you and good luck to all of you.
Move for approval of resolution 19-113.
Second.
Okay, any further comments? Democracy at work. Although the results are already known, this is the official certification to our city recorder.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Buhler.
Aye.
Councilman Hume.
Aye.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Nordfeld.
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, next we have resolution 19-114. This authorizing the city to accept a public sidewalk lighting and utility easement from Wasatch Clean Energy for property at approximately 2265 South, 5650 West. These are fairly routine items where we do a lot of work on these types of items, and usually without too much comment. So with that, to the council.
I move for approval, resolution 19-114.
Second.
Seeing no further comment, to our city recorder.
Councilman Nordfeld.
Yes.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Hume.
Aye.
Councilman Buhler.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
That completes our regularly scheduled work. I will extend my congratulations to all who came through the primary, participating in our election process. We encourage all of our citizens to participate in that through voting. Unfortunately, turnout isn't always that high, but we do encourage with this new mail-in ballot, we get a lot more people voting. So that's a plus. With that then, good luck to you all. Oh, I think I should mention what we had in study meeting. The Chamber of Commerce is going to do a Meet the Candidate night. And so I just mentioned that in passing.
We've heard the rumor.
Yeah. And so I just mentioned that there'll be an opportunity for our citizens, other than calling up them individually, to ask questions, to maybe have a night to meet everyone. With that then,
Motion to adjourn.
all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. It passes unanimously. We're adjourned. Thank you all for coming.